Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again because it's my favourite time of the week. It's Wrestlers of the Week, and there have been some major ass developments in the Wrestlers of the Week league table. Not major ass developments, major hyphen ass. There's been some big changes. It's got off to an odd start, but there's been some major ass developments in the Wrestlers of the Week league table. We'll see who's been good this week. There's been, to be honest, right, it's not been the best week in terms of sheer match quality in some promotions, but the storyline stuff has been bloody wonderful. So let's crack on and look at some, well, first of all, let's look at some honourable mentions. First of all, I mean, I can't include him on Wrestlers of the Week because he barely did any wrestling. He hit some drop kicks and stuff, but Daniel Bryan gets an honorary honourable mention purely because he can wrestle again and he can be on the league table. It could happen in the next few weeks. He could appear on our league table. An unthinkable turn of events only a few weeks ago. I can't believe that Daniel Bryan's back. Also, I'd like to give a late honourable mention to poor Cedric Alexander, who last week, maybe you could make an argument to say that I should have included him on the table because of his excellent match on 205 Live. It turned out to be a wonderful week in terms of match quality everywhere, but I think if it was this week, which was more storyline based, then he would definitely have been on the table because it was a good story and a good match. It's the key weakness in this show, I will admit, that on a week-by-week basis, it's hard to reward the right people at the right time. So I'm sorry, Cedric, but hopefully you get back on the list soon because I really like you. And as I've mentioned before, you're very handsome. I always mention how handsome they are. Also, a quick shout out to Roderick Strong, sneaky Roderick Strong, who tried again to get on the list by having the audacity to have a good match during a week when not much went on, certainly in WWE. We've seen a couple of guys from WWE in this table, but not too many, and I think that Roderick thought he saw his chance to try to be the heel of the list as he is, pick up a few points. Well, Roddy, I'm afraid that you haven't made it on quite yet this week, buddy, pal. What is this feud I'm trying to start with Roderick Strong, who has clearly never seen my face in his life? It's quite sad, really, quite harrowing. Number 10, a surprising one, and a late addition to the list. He only got added last night. A man named Kongo Kong, a huge hulking monster over in Impact Wrestling, managed by Jimmy Jacobs himself. This wasn't the greatest match, but it was the main event of Impact, and it saw Kongo Kong take on the returning Abyss in a Monsters Ball match, a no DQ weapons-based match. And it was a bit ropey in parts. The match was a bit, careful Abyss, you're a bit older now. But the result was important, and the manner of it was important. Kongo Kong picked up the win, even after taking a powerbomb through a table. He choke slammed Abyss onto a board with barbed wire on it. You know, those sort of boards that you only really see in hardcore matches, or in non-WWE hardcore matches. But I really like Kongo Kong. He seems like a bit of a throwback to the WWF monsters of old, especially with Jimmy Jacobs as an excellent manager by his side. I really like it, and I'm going to give him a 1 point welcome to the list just because it wasn't a great match, but it was the right result, and he's the new monster of Impact Wrestling. Rah. Up next, a man who returns to NXT, as he often does. He often pops in for a quick cup of tea and then leaves. Cup of tea because he's British. See what I did there? Roderick Strong had lost a partner, and he needs to find someone else to, compete in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic over in NXT. And who should he find but Peter Dunne from the West Midlands in the UK. He came out with his WWE United Kingdom Championship in his mouth, and they had a match against Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan, who really impressed me, and I should have given them honourable mentions as well, especially Lorcan, who hits a killer, diving uppercut. It's brilliant. But Pete Dunne was the star of the show here. He didn't even pick up the pinfall, but just the fact that he was there and his presence, and the fact that everything he hit was so crisp and purposeful, means that, again, he is on this list for only the second time, Pete. I mean, after the last year he had, I was expecting him to be in the upper reaches of this table, but I guess that's the problem when you're wrestling such a sporadic calendar. He'll do a match for WWE, and then he'll do a month in the UK doing a combination of serious and silly kind of comedy matches. So if Pete, or when Pete, I guess, becomes a fully fledged WWE superstar on a more regular basis, I think we'll start to see him really shoot up that table, really get going, reach for the stars. Pete for the... Oh, that was a misjudgment. Next up, David Starr, who had a match with Volta in a promotion called Defiant Wrestling. That's their official... We are Defiant. No, formerly known as WCPW. David Starr had a great match with Volta at Lights Out in Defiant Wrestling. It's like a Power Ranger kind of thing. They all do it, I swear. If you watch it, they do that. The match was a good one. David Starr and Volta are well experienced against wrestling each other as opponents. I've really thrown myself off there. Often Volta picks up points on this list because he's often the star of matches, but I thought that David Starr, no pun intended, was the star of this match because he really sold the terror and the underdog kind of appeal of someone going up against Volta, especially a smaller man, as nearly everyone is when they go up against the big Austrian. Starr, I think, played well to a new audience who might have been unfamiliar with Volta. They're familiar with Starr, but not with Volta. And I think that he really helped get Volta over. And I was more impressed with Starr because of that. So he gets 3 lovely points from the promotion known as Defiant Wrestling. Number 7, my boy, or one of my boys in Los Ingobernables de Japón, Sanada, who was knocked out of the New Japan Cup by Zack Sabre Jr., as just about everyone was. But he put on a good showing and remains one of the crispest, smoothest, most fluid wrestlers in New Japan, and his hair still never goes out of place. I just love Sanada, and if you're watching this, Sanada, which you almost certainly aren't, and you can provide me with contact details so I can get a replica of your lovely Adidas jacket that you wore once on Twitter, then get in touch, because boy howdy, that jacket was a good one. It was a 10 out of 10 jacket. I loved it. But well done, Sanada. You got a few points. Give me your jacket. Number 6, another New Japan figure. This one, a pure babyface, Juice Robinson. I think making his first appearance on this list. Welcome to the list, Juice. What's your favourite kind of juice, guys? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Mine's orange juice. Juice Robinson, who also got knocked out of the New Japan Cup earlier this week. He got knocked out by Tama Hoshi, but still put in a performance characteristic of his run in New Japan so far, full of babyface fire and energy. They really love him over there and have taken to him far better than Western crowds have. I think the Western crowds often look at a pure happy-go-lucky babyface and think, what a loser. Like, I would take his lunch money. But over in New Japan, they look at an enthusiastic babyface and think, wow, he's really exciting, I'm going to get behind him. Kind of like an old school sort of WWE crowd would, because in Japan I think they're generally just more accepting of traditional storylines, whereas nowadays over in the West it's a bit uncool, isn't it, to cheer for the good guy. Also, I'd like to point out, I didn't mean that you could literally take Juice Robinson's lunch money. He is a hulking figure and he could probably fell you with a single swoop of his dreadlocks. Welcome to the list, well deserved. My favourite's orange juice again, just letting you know. Number 5, a man that I was not too familiar with who took part in a huge main event over in CMLL, in an event which I think, due to my rudimentary grasp of Spanish, I think the event translated as the House of Two Legends. That is a man known as Angel de Oro. De Oro was the babyface in this match who faced off against a heel known as El Cuatrero, who I guess wasn't... I mean, I didn't know too much about either of them, but the one that I was impressed with more was De Oro, who did some really cool spots. He's one of those luchadors who's just impossibly nimble, and to my huge surprise, at the end of the match, he lost and got unmasked, and he was a far older man than I thought. I was expecting some like 25-year-old to come out, the way he was springing about. He did a balcony dive at one point, or like off the top of the stage. It was a bit of a raised stage platform, and he jumped off it onto Cuatrero, and just generally really impressed me. So Angel de Oro, who now that I've noticed him and paid attention to him, I'm definitely going to be following his progress, kind of like I did with Mochizuki over in Dragon Gate. And I should point out as well, Mochizuki defended his title again this week. Should have given him an honourable mention, but the spotlight here is on Angel de Oro, who has lost his mask, which could lead to, I guess, a new push, a new storyline with his naked face revealed. Wrestling's dramatic. Number 4, Drew Gulak, who had an excellent match with Mustafa Ali on 205 Live. Now, as Matthew of Botchamania pointed out to me, Gulak's character he's a heel, but he's a presentable, clean-cut guy, wears a suit, loves PowerPoint presentations, and then when it's an important match, something snaps in his head and he starts murdering folk. He is a terrifying prospect to come up against, especially in 205 Live, where he's kind of one of the naturally bigger guys over there. And he really bossed Mustafa Ali around in this match. At one point as well, Drew Gulak took a hell of a bump. He got thrown like into the announce table. Most superstars would like jump onto it and land safely on their back. He like spiraled across it and really looked like he was out of control. Maybe he genuinely was out of control and just took out a poor like timekeeper or stagehand or someone at the side of the announce table. But I really enjoyed the match. I think Drew Gulak, I was surprised he lost. I thought he was going to progress on to the final at WrestleMania 34, but no, it's going to be Ali versus Cedric Alexander, which will definitely still be an excellent match, but I'm surprised they didn't go for the classic babyface versus heel storyline. Number 3, Hiroshi Tanahashi, the New Japan ace, who lost in the final of the New Japan Cup this week to Zack Sabre Jr., but Tanahashi still performed with like a great grasp. I was about to say a great grasp of pro wrestling. This young Tanahashi fella is pretty good at the wrestling, if you ask me. No, of course not. He is a legend of the business now, especially in Japan. And again, put on a match of the year candidate, many are calling it. I'm going to be, oh man, I sound like a killjoy here. I'm going to be a little bit critical and say that it wasn't quite as good as some of the matches we've seen this year. I preferred some of the less technical ones because I guess I'm a peasant when it comes to wrestling, and I don't appreciate the art of the technical work and the grappling. No, I do, of course I do. The match didn't resonate with me in quite the way that it did for others, I guess. And if it did for you, that's fine, but I'm gonna make Tanahashi only number 3 on this week, whereas I think if the match had really struck me, he'd have definitely been 1 or 2 in other weeks. But still, not to take away from that performance, it was an excellent one. And I love Juice Robinson on commentary as well, because he kept referring to him as a mother trucker. Number 2, Mustafa Ali, who gave an amazing performance in that 205 Live match against Dragula. He was reminiscent, honestly, of Shawn Michaels in the way that he sold every little thing just enough to make it look a little bit more painful than it actually was. Like, he got thrown into the ring post and he bounced off it and flopped like a fish on the floor. His offense was also killer, as we've come to expect from Mustafa Ali as he's progressed through this tournament. And even though, booking-wise, I'd have rather have seen Gulak progress to the final at WrestleMania, I think match-wise, maybe Ali was the best shout. Cedric's obviously brilliant, as we saw against Ibushi like a year and a half ago in the Cruiserweight Classic. He can put on genuinely like near enough a 5-star match. And now I think so can Ali, because he really pulled it out of the bag this week on 205 Live, and he has been in previous weeks, but this performance really did blow me away. So well done, Mustafa Ali. He's getting up the list as well. Go, I need to come up with a cooler action than this one, I feel. And number 1 in my rest of the week, oh man, it's all gonna kick off, because last week I said that Zack Sabre Jr. was my second ever 2-time Wrestler of the Week. He and Omega have won it 2 times now. But now Zack Sabre Jr. isn't just the first ever 3-time Wrestler of the Week, he's also the first ever consecutive Wrestler of the Week, that's the word I was looking for, and also leads our league table. He won the New Japan Cup in one of the biggest pushes ever seen in Japan for a man from the UK. Zack Sabre Jr. has been pushed to the, not quite to the moon, but certainly through the ozone layer. He is, he's just tapping out guys that he has no right to be beating in terms of their stature in Japan. Obviously in terms of skill and how much he deserves it, I completely agree with this booking decision. Zack beat Sanada earlier in the week and beat Tanahashi in the final this week, and also previously in the tournament beat Naito and Ibushi as well. Lots of big names that he's walked through there to get to the title match, which is against Okada at Sakura Genesis. And even though I don't think that Zack would win the match, given the length and the prestige of Okada's reign and the comparative shortness of Zack's build, if he won, I wouldn't be too shocked. He tapped out Tanahashi and he tapped out Naito. I wouldn't be too shocked, is all I'm saying. But he can't, can he? I wouldn't be too shocked. So that's all for this week on Wrestlers of the Week. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Now, before I go, let's take a look at that cheeky old league table. Now, as we can see, Zack Sabre Jr. is the new leader. As we go forward into WrestleMania weekend, where both Zack and Ospreay have matches, can Zack maintain his lead over the man who's led the table for a lot of weeks now, for most of its lifespan? Also, we've got next week as well, before WrestleMania weekend, where either or could pick up some sneaky points here or there. If Zack has a killer match against Okada, like, imagine what that's going to do. He could get a big lead over Ospreay and the chasing pack, which of course includes the likes of Gargano and sneaky Roderick Strong and a few other great wrestlers as well. But yes, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic, and you can check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course,
to join us.